Hi, and welcome back to Purple Collar Life. In today's video, we're going to debunk the myth that a top-down fire is a better way to build a fire than the traditional bottom-up method. Now, I'm going to start out right here in the beginning of the video saying that I've made lots of videos about starting fires in our buck stove Model 91. You can see it's burning right here beside me. And today, I took the opportunity to build the top-down fire in this stove. I'm going to show you how that went. Because in a recent video where I talked about how to properly light a stove in really cold weather, the chimney's cold, the flue's cold, the stove's cold, and how to keep all that smoke from entering your house, because the density of the cold air comes down the chimney and into your house, and it forces all the smoke when you're trying to build a fire into your house. There were a lot of great comments in that video, as there always are. We always appreciate the support and the comments in the videos. I think we learn a lot from the comments. Other people learn a lot from the comments. So thank you to everyone who leaves a comment, and please make sure you leave a comment to this video. But in today's video, we're going to address, we get that comment a lot about using the top-down method to start a fire. So today we're going to compare traditional fire starting method with the paper and the kindling on the bottom, and then you let it build some coals and then you throw in your bigger pieces, versus the top-down method, which is where you put your big logs on the bottom first, then you put your kindling, then you put your paper, you light the paper, and it burns its way down to the larger pieces. I went through that experiment today so I could record it. I've actually tried it a few other times, and just like we mentioned in the previous video, everyone's experience is going to be different. Some key things to remember are that based on your stove type, based on your house type, based on your house age, based on your windows, based on the size of your house, based on your insulation, all that is going to have a factor on how your stove lights best. And everyone's experience will be different. So choosing the right fire starting method for your needs can be tricky. In today's video, we're going to explore the differences between top-down and traditional, and then by the end of this video, hopefully you'll know which system might work best for you. So in the other videos I've made about lighting a fire in our buck stove, I've got a system, I've got a process. That process is after 20-some years of kind of figuring out what works best in this stove in our house. I crumple up newspaper, put it on the bottom. I chop up kindling wood, typically pine, put it on top. I use a hybrid method of the log cabin and the teepee. So I build a log cabin in the center, I put a teepee around the edges. That gives me the best possibility of gathering the fire, the flames from the paper that I'm lighting, to try to catch that kindling on fire. Before I light the fire, I open a window here in the basement because our house is about 22 years old. That's not brand new, but it's pretty new. It's a really well-built house. Our house has all 2x6 walls, completely insulated, very thick insulation. We've got double pane and triple pane windows. Our house is very tight, maybe even too tight. So tight that when we want to light a fire, we have to open a window so that we can get some updraft going up through the chimney. And I explained that in that previous video, which I'll put a link to up above. So I tried to follow the exact same method this time when I used my top-down fire burning. I wanted it to be a fair comparison. So I did the same type of thing. I used the same type of newspaper. I used the same type of kindling. I opened that window behind me to let some fresh air in here to try to increase that draft up through the chimney. I did the proper method of building a top-down fire. I put some really well-seasoned oak firewood on the bottom, my split pieces on the bottom. I moisture tested them, made sure they were under 15% moisture, set that as the base. Then I put my chopped kindling wood up on top. I again used somewhat of a log cabin method, but it's a little bit more difficult when you're stacking on top of the firewood, and there's only so much height in the firebox. So I could only do a layer, like 2 layers of kindling wood, maybe a third one in some spots, and then I put my crumpled up newspaper on top. I lit that newspaper. I had the same system of having both air intakes open completely, having the damper open completely, and leaving the door open a crack to let that air in, and this was the result. Now, I had actually predicted that was exactly what was going to happen because I've tried that method down here before and had the same result. So before I even lit the paper, I made sure I had all of our clean clothes upstairs and not down here in the basement. We do have a clothes drying line here in the basement where we would dry our clothes in the wintertime to save electricity from using the clothes dryer. But I wanted there to be not all that smoke smell on everything. So I took everything upstairs, lit that fire, and as you can see, smoke just billowed out the front. For me, in this very tight house, the problem with the top-down fire building method is there's not enough quick heat to quickly heat up the flue and the chimney and that smoke. Even with the window open, even trying to induce that draft up through the stove, it just takes too long to get things warmed up. With the traditional fire method, my paper's on the bottom, and as it's burning, it's immediately lighting that pine kindling. That gets things going a little bit faster, gets the heat rolling a little bit faster, gets some coals faster, and it doesn't take very long. And I'll put a clip in here from the previous video. You can actually see the draft change from the air coming forward out of the stove to the air then pulling into the stove, and you see the flames go from forward to leaning back when the air starts going through. Now, I'll put the clip in of the top-down ignition method, and you can see it took several minutes of the smoke just pouring out the front of the stove. In fact, our entire basement was full of smoke. I put some lights down here so that we could see the smoke through the air, and I captured that on video also. So, kind of debunked the myth that the top-down fire lighting method is always better. That's not the case. You can't use those extremes when you're talking about things like firewood and fires. Everyone's situation is different. So as you can see from the video, the top-down fire building method does not work for us in this house in Northwest Pennsylvania, in this Buck Stove Model 91 wood stove. Now for other people, if you've got a regular fireplace or an older house with a draft that induces up through the chimney a little bit easier, the top-down fire building method does have a couple advantages. First of all, you're not opening and closing the door a lot of times. So when I build a traditional fire, I get that kindling burning, and then I've got to get some logs and put those logs on top of the kindling. You eliminate that step with the top-down method because the paper burns, the kindling burns, and then it automatically just ignites the logs that are below it. So that's one less time I had to put firewood in. It also is a lot less times to check on the fire. When I'm doing the traditional fire method, I set the timer on the device on the wall and set it for 5 minutes and I check the fire, 8 minutes and I check the fire, 15 minutes and I check the fire, 20 minutes and I check the fire. I'm always checking to make sure I'm adjusting my air intake, my damper. You still have to adjust those things with the top-down fire, but it's a lot less checking because you've already lit the kindling, which is lighting the big pieces, what gets things burning. The downside to it is that in our situation, it just doesn't work for us. It creates way too much smoke, takes way too long to warm things up, to get that draft going up through. So that is how I am debunking the myth that the top-down fire building method is always better. It may not be better for you. It's always best to come to your own conclusions after you do your own little tests, and usually it only takes a test like this one time to determine I won't try that again. Now, I tried it again for you guys on video, but I had a pretty good idea that it was going to do exactly what it's done before and fill this whole basement with smoke, which is what it did. So if we're thinking about a fire that's not in a wood stove in a basement in your house, if you're thinking about building a fire perhaps in an outdoor wood burner or in just a fireplace outside, the top-down method might be the best method for you because it is pretty convenient. You put your logs on the bottom, you're kindling the next layer up, your paper on top, you light it and forget about it, it burns its way down. It's nice and easy. So there are circumstances where the top-down fire might be the best method for you. There are other circumstances, like this, where the bottom traditional fire might be the best way to do things. So hopefully you found this video informative and entertaining. Make sure you leave those comments down below, situations where you have or have not used the top-down fire building method and where you've seen it work or not work. I think that we've used it at camp a couple times because of the convenience, but I will probably never again use it down here in the buck stove because 3 or 4 times of filling the basement up with smoke, that's enough times for me to learn my lesson. Thanks for watching. Hopefully we'll see you again the next time.